Hi, welcome to the Week Ahead. I'm Tony Nash. Thanks for joining us. I'm with Tracy and Albert today. Sam is away, but we are talking about a pretty volatile week this week. Before we get started, actually, please like and subscribe. Please ask any questions below, make any comments. We want to make sure this is interesting for you. So just let us know any additional info you want or comments. We're happy to address those. We had a pretty volatile week this week with crude selling off pretty sharply early in the week. So we're going to look at energy backwardation, and Tracy's going to educate us all on what's happening in those markets. We also had some comments out of Putin about a multipolar world. We're going to have Albert talk through that. And then on Friday, unfortunately, we saw the assassination of Japan's former Prime Minister Abe. So we're going to talk about Japan post-Abe and what that means for Japan and the region. So first, let's get into energy. Tracy, obviously, we had a big sell-off in energy early in the week, and then we saw it come back later. What was really the catalyst for that energy sell-off on Tuesday? I mean,
what happened is that we started on July 5th, right? Mm-hmm. We opened with low liquidity in the markets in general. Then we saw a sell-off in the general markets and commodities and risky assets. That kind of exacerbated that trade. And then on the 6th, we saw a liquidation of a couple of very large positions in that market. And so fundamentally, basically, there is no reason for this sell-off other than technicalities. In fact, if we're looking at this market, the spreads, right, the calendar spreads, which means month to month, were exploding higher during this entire move. That implies that the market the physical market at least, is very tight right now, because you're seeing backwardation increase significantly. When we're seeing a $10 move in ZZ, which is crazy.
Can you tell us what that means? What a $10 move in ZZ? What does that mean for the rest of us?
So if you're talking about calendar spreads, right? We're talking about monthly moves. So we can talk about like the current front month is August. So we're we look at August, September, and September to October, October to November, et cetera, et cetera. And once these spreads start exploding higher, mm-hmm. that means that we're seeing people want to dump oil in the front month markets because that's more lucrative to them than keeping it in storage. So if I'm an investor and I'm looking and I want to invest in a backwardated market, I'm looking at a convex market that goes from right to left, and I'm going to invest in, say, a back month, and I want my investment to move higher. That is
investing further in the future.
Right, and that's what a backward. If you're in a contango market, we're looking at the opposite situation where you're looking at a convex structure going from right to left. Whereas if I invest in December, by the time my investment reaches front month expiry, I'm losing money, I'm losing value in my investment.
Right.
And so that's how we kind of have to look at that situation.
Yeah, you had a great tweet this week explaining that with visuals. So that was excellent.
It's on Twitter if anyone wants to look at that.
Exactly. So we saw this in crude. We also saw it in natural gas, right?
Yes. I mean, we're kind of seeing, we've had a major pullback in many of the commodities markets, right? We're seeing a little bit of a bounce this week because we're looking at China. China has recently announced we have one of two, the last announcement was $200 billion bond sale, right? So we're looking at a lot of stimulus out of China. That's giving commodities a boost right now. we have to see. I think the markets are still going to wait on, particularly the industrial and base metal markets are going to wait until we actually see some action in China to really see investment back into these markets after this huge pullback.
So nobody believes the China stimulus story right now. It's kind of a show me the money period, right? But once they do start to show the money, do you think we'll see much more action in energy prices?
I think you'll see, I think energy prices are, I think you'll see more action in metals prices than you will energy prices. Let's put it that.
So copper's way off over compared to, say, the last 18 months, but it's not way off given historical copper prices. If we go back before, say, Q1 of 2020, it's kind of where it had been previously, in the ballpark at least, right? So we haven't necessarily reverted back to pre-COVID necessarily.
Right.
We're just in this start-stop manufacturing world, and that's what's affecting base metals like copper. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at like a monthly chart rather than looking at like a 5-minute chart, well, you see, and the market's kind of just been consolidating really for the last 2 years. And so until we see a really big break above, say, $5, and a really big break below $3, we're still kind of in that consolidation zone.
350 to 450 kind of range. Interesting. Okay, sorry, Albert.
Yeah, I got a question for Tracy. Nat gas, since we discussed it a little bit, that's used to make hydrogen, if I'm not mistaken. And since the nat gas prices seem to be elevated, isn't that going to be a little bit too cost ineffective to make hydrogen, which causes a diesel problem? If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure about that. That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely. That's going to absolutely. I think that's going to be a problem looking forward. I think there is a lot of problems if we're looking at the hydrogen market. I mean, there's still a lot of problems when we're talking about taking this idea to actual fruition, right? Because if you look at the hydrogen market, there's like a rainbow of colors. We've got green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, this hydrogen, but we really haven't gotten to the point that can overtake nat gas. The allure of the situation is that you can take hydrogen, mix it with nat gas, you can send it down the same pipelines, and that saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
The situation is, that's a great idea in theory, but we're just not there yet.
Okay. Gotcha. And so Albert's question about diesel is not any less tight than it was a week or two ago, right? In fact, that's just as tight or tighter than it was, say, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, the diesel market is still very tight.
Right.
And maintenance season starts, doesn't it, from September to November?
Yes, we will start maintenance season then.
Okay.
And I would actually look for some of these refineries to maybe put off maintenance season. So that's what I would watch into the maintenance season happen. And it's happened before. It's not the only first time. If we have such a tight market, we could see them putting off maintenance seasons. It's not unheard of.
Okay, so hurricane season and maintenance season are upon us, but we may see at least maintenance season put off.
Hope not. I just moved to Florida.
Good luck with that. I'm in Texas. We don't get as many as you, but it'll be fun season for you. Okay, let's move on, guys, to some comments out of Putin this week. Vladimir Putin had some comments about us, the multipolar world becoming more and more of a reality. We heard this 10 years ago, we heard this 20 years ago, and it came up again this week. So Albert, can you kind of let us know what's going on there?
Oh, Tony, I've used this multipolar example for the US dollar dominance for years now. And the fact of the matter is we are not in a multipolar world. We are not even going into a multipolar world. People are confusing a little bit of weakness in the US leadership and errors in decision making to foreign policy for multipolar. It's just a multipolarity, and it's just not the case. For the world to be in a multipolar scenario, you would need multiple countries with equal militaries and economies. We are nowhere near that. I mean, the Russian economy is 2.5 trillion. The American economy is pushing 30 trillion. This is just a joke by Vladimir Putin, simply to undermine the U.S. Dominance, both in the world stage and the dollar. I mean, it's
but
not,
who believes it? I mean, aside from some, dime store pundits, who write for the Atlantic or whatever, who believes that nonsense?
Well, there's a lot of Europhiles that want to see the United States take a step down, think that they can do it. A lot of crypto guys, a lot of gold guys. These guys have to make that argument because without multipolarity, you cannot have a neutral reserve asset to settle trade, and that's just the fact of the matter. The problem becomes if you have a multipolar world, you're on the verge of another world war because there always has to be one alpha that takes hold of the system. You just can't have equal people.
Well, and the cost of the transaction cost, the cost of trade, everything goes up if you have multipolarity, right?
It's
interest rates go up, everything goes up.
It's completely unstable.
And you export inflation. You start exporting inflation from other countries to other countries.
Yeah, and you get
the current situation.
Right, and the world is built on China exporting deflation. Has been for 15, 20 years, and it will continue. If they could just keep their ports open, it will continue, and it makes people happy.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
Does it not?
No, you're right. That's just the way their system works right now with the dollar underpinning all of it. It's the lifeblood that makes trade work, and people are not going to like it, but I promise you, no one alive today is going to see anything other.
So let me just take a step back. Who does he think the poles are? Russia, China, and the U.S., or is it like Germany or something? I mean,
I mean, he's trying to make an assumption to say that Russia and China are the new contenders to the United States. Yeah. The problem with that is they don't have military power projection globally like the United States does. They can't even invade Ukraine. China can't even invade Taiwan. Otherwise, they would have taken it if they could have. This is the world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, Russia can stir up problems in Libya or the Middle East or whatever.
There's no question that they can stir up problems and they can fill in vacuums that we leave, right? Intentionally, unintentionally, but they cannot hold that territory. They cannot force changes in governments like the United States can.
And every time I hear somebody talk about the Belt and Road as a sign of China's dominance, it reminds me of Napoleon's march to Russia, right? I mean, they're spreading themselves so thin, they can't keep that up. And it's
they can, and that's a perfect example. Like to do that, to make that thing actually successful, you need to back that up to secure your trade routes with a military, right? Yep. China has 2 military bases outside of China, like one in Djibouti and something else. They can't even send ships over to their armor. This is
Myanmar.
This is beyond a joke to me.
Right.
And I don't take anybody seriously that even brings this part up.
Right.
Vladimir Putin included.
No, that's good. So anybody watching this, if you have an alternative view, let us know in the comments. Honestly, we'd love to hear it. We just want to hear some credible.
Put your notes in the comments.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, now, finally, today, I woke up in the US to the really tragic news of Japan's former Prime Minister Abe being assassinated. I saw Abe in his first stint as PM in the mid-2000s. And then when he came back in 2013, and with the Abenomics plan, which was really, really difficult to pull off, ultimately successfully, the guy was smart. He was all about Japan. He's all about Japan recovering, all about Japan being competitive. I've put a picture up of Abe shaking hands with Prime Minister Modi of India. Japan and India were very tight. A lot of Japanese investment going to India, a lot of partnership across those two countries and in Africa, both to defend against China in Asia and other parts of the world. So Prime Minister Abe will be missed. I think what Abe did partly was bring back Japan's ability to defend itself by passing a constitutional change that allowed the Japanese military to defend itself, where previously it wasn't even allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of kind of dignity that Japan kind of got back, and we can rub Japan's nose in World War II, for eternity, but it's not going to be constructive. What happened. They've paid their dues, And that's kind of what Abe said. Look, we paid our dues. We're going to move on now and join the 21st century. And that's what Japan did. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts, guys, on Japan post-Abe. What do you see as, of course, they've moved on to another prime minister. Japan has already moved on from the Abe government. He wasn't a sitting prime minister. But what do you see kind of the challenges of Japan's role in Asia, particularly, but also in the world post-Abe?
I think the most pressing issue for Japan would be contending with China, both militarily and economically. Abe was, like you said, a brilliant statesman and a patriot for the Japanese people. So he's going to be sorely missed. And it's not just he's going to be missed, but his cabinet and the people that his network is going to be missed, because they're losing a big part of what he brought to the table in terms of strategy and ideology. It was a big shift. I think that the Japanese are probably going to struggle for strategy in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's a sad thing, but I'm sure the Japanese, they're resilient people, and they'll move on and they'll recover.
Tracy?
No, I absolutely agree with what Albert said. I think the thing is that people are painting him. The media right now, in particular, the Western media, is painting him as some villain, which is very interesting to me. And I think that people should really just look at his legacy and respect what he has done instead of jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, they're portraying him as some ultra-nationalist, but he's as ultra-nationalist as Modi is in India, or Jokowi is in Indonesia, or Lee is in Singapore, or you name it, Tsai Ing-wen in Taiwan. Like, it's an Asian direction now, right? And has been for the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, the media also, Tony, is like desperate to not allow any center right or even right nationalist figures be martyrs or looked up upon. They just can't stomach it. They just can't help themselves to demonize a person that is absolutely unjustifiably demonized by being called an ultra-nationalist, and even worse by the NPR. NPR had 2 other headlines that they had to delete because it was just so atrocious. So this is a quick Modi, Abe. I don't want to put Viktor Orban into that, but all these right-leaning leaders just get attacked, and just the media can't help it.
Right. Yeah, I think from an economic plan, if we look at what Abe did, with Abenomics, of course, the Japanese central bank is kind of independent, right? But they really took the JPY from kind of 76 to the dollar to say 120 to the dollar. And it really allowed Japanese manufacturing to be competitive again, right? And it took somebody with that clarity of economic vision, as well as the clarity of, say, the military vision and political vision, to be able to pull off what they did. And in terms of, say, energy sustainability, under Abe, they also created much deeper relationships in the Middle East with places like Qatar, UAE.
And they also looked forward to nuclear, where you looked at the West was looking to shut things down. Abe was looking to invest in nuclear projects.
Right.
So you're looking for energy security, energy going forward. There were a lot of things that he did to advance that sector in Japan, which is admirable.
Right. And so Albert, if we take a US perspective on this, the US has worked hard to kind of hold a line against China. Do you think with the, we'll say, mediocre leadership we have in the US right now, do you think it's possible that some of that US, say, coalition falls apart a little bit? Or do you think we just kind of take a breather and then it resumes based on the institutional, say, stamina of parts of the Japanese government?
That's a great question, Tony. That's actually a really good question. And I think where we have to look for, we have to separate the Biden foreign policy cabinet with the Pentagon, because the Pentagon is actually leading this charge for the Pacific, with Japan and Australia in charge. I really don't think that the Japanese are going to take a step back, or the U.S. is going to take a step back. I think the system is pretty much, the train has already left the station and it's rolling. there might be an argument from the opposition in Japan, but I don't think that it's going to take hold to derail this new initiative by the U.S. in the Pacific.
Great, that's good to hear. Okay, guys. Hey, on that somber note, we'll end it. But let's look at the week ahead, guys. What are you looking for in the week ahead? We've had this real turnaround this week. What do you see going into next week? Do you see things calming a bit? As we saw coming into Friday, things really turn up in U.S. markets and in commodity markets. Do we see things stabilizing a bit going into the Fed meeting after we've had some Fed comments late this week?
I think I want to see the comments of where they might signal a 50 basis point rate hike versus a 75. I absolutely believe 75 points is coming, just from the jobs data that they posted. It was obviously massaged a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It always is, though, right?
Yeah, always.
Of course it is. Yeah, but this one was a good one, and then the revision too, and it just signals to me that they want another 75 basis point rate hike
to really kill it.
They got to tackle inflation. I mean, they're looking at 8.8 on the next CPI, which is just, you're looking, and then you're staring down the barrel at 9% and 9.2 or 9.3 in the coming months, which is absolutely a political nuclear bomb that goes off. So,
yeah. Okay. Tracy, what are you looking for in the next week, especially in commodities?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We probably will see 75 after the after non-farm payrolls this week, which I was looking for a clue, kind of, are we going to get 50? Are we going to get 75? It looks like 75 for sure. So looking in the coming week, I'm really looking to China right now and to see what comes to fruition with these sort of stimulus plans. What does that do to the base and industrial metals markets? And I think those are the two things that you should be focusing on right now, particularly if you're invested in commodity markets.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping they give in to 50, but I'm not hopeful. I do think they are on the kind of conservative hawkish side and go 75. But if they can pick up the bat phone and talk to China, and the China guys will unload a dump truck of cash over the next week or so, then I think they'll be a little bit lighter and do 50 basis points. But I think a lot of it depends on China. ECB, they can't get their act together, so there's nothing ECB can do to really help. And Europe is in so much trouble that it doesn't really matter what they do. They have huge problems anyway. So I think you're right, and I think I don't think we necessarily, and tell me what you think about this, but I don't necessarily think we see massive chop. I think we see just a lot of fairly sideways moves for the next week or so.
I would be wary if we jumped up to like 4,000 or even like 39.70. I think a rug pull would be in an order right after that. That's what they do. They bull everybody up and then pull the rug out.
Yep. Tracy?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you both on everything. I would look for, after this big move down in the commodity or in the oil markets in particular, because we did have sort of a flow events coupled with a couple of large funds kind of were forced to liquidate.
Yep.
So I could see that we still could go a little bit higher next week, sideways to higher next week.
Yep. Very good. Okay, guys. Be interesting to see. Thanks for joining us. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend and have a great week ahead.
Thanks.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I struggle with the headache through that whole thing.